It's hard to know where to start in talking about the kinds of things that we learned at Midwest Leadership, in addition to things like that there was an official announcement by Kimberly Clark that bathroom tissue comes over the top. I think we're probably split on that. For myself, maybe one of the biggest takeaways was just being in 24/7 for a whole week of just loving community. We get a slice of it here, and maybe we aren't quite as always open or unjudging or whatever, but, doing that with such a large group and just totally accepting and whatever, it set for me kind of a gold standard of what we're trying to achieve. I learned that we don't really have sufficiently good methods of sharing information about what we want and need as a community and how we want to present ourselves to the world. And for myself, I saw congregations that were very active in, more like the national conversations that UUs are having everywhere. And that maybe I think we do a lot of really great things in the community, but there's kind of less of a connect on some of those issues. And I think knowing how to speak as a community is a difficult thing for us, because we, for the most part, don't have those kinds of dimensions laid out. As a service planning person, I found it interesting. I mean, I've kind of always known this, I guess, but they went into how different personality types, and they used the Myers-Briggs for this, want different things in their services. So it's kind of like, for us in a small community that isn't homogeneous, you can't ever really go to one kind of service. In a way, it's one of the things that makes it nice not to have a minister, but there are so many other things that make it nice to have one. But, just to have a variety of what your services are going to look like. That's something that we really need to do, and I think we try to balance that. Did you have a comment that you needed to make, Scott, or not? I was going to start
after you do your three.
Yeah, I kind of did my three there.
They didn't teach us how to do these things with microphones at the school. I think my main takeaway was that I have a much greater appreciation for UU. I've always, from the start, I've always had an appreciation for spirituality and what this congregation has given to me in that. But I haven't really connected to religion or the history of the UU. And the fact that UU people have always been inspired to do racial or social justice of many sorts, and it goes all the way back. And just look at the appreciation of where we were at the beginning of the 19th century in the battle between unity and Trinity. And now, we look at it as past history, but those people really put themselves on the line. They were heretics, some of them I think were killed. There have been struggles, and it gives me appreciation for the continuation of that. In the same vein, that I have great admiration for the national UU, and just the fact that they sponsor conferences like this, which is their way of saying, well, our work is very important, and we want to continue. Thinking of Chance and the conference that he went to, sponsoring that, inspiring people, young people to do that. And also an appreciation for our community. I know here we talk about that we're on the verge of getting a full-time minister, and we look at that as a negative. But the positive aspect of that is that we're small enough, like for the joys and concerns, we can share that. And we're also small enough so that we can promote democracy, small d. We're still small enough to have a democratic number so we can share ideas directly, and that's what we hope to do this morning. Oh, and one thing I didn't learn at the school was I didn't learn my elevator speech. And you all know what that is, you know. Are you a Unitarian? You got 2 or 3 minutes to spit it out. We had a room of 50 people, 33 of us, and then the staff, there's quite a few. And they said elevator speech, and nobody could come up with the answer. So I think interspersed with little senior moments, I think I can do a pretty good job on that now, because I have a much better understanding of where I am.
So let's hear it.
No, it's fraught with senior moments now, so ask me individually.
Okay, very good.
Ian Evison, who used to be the district when it was Midwest District, the head person in that, and now he's part of the larger regional thing, but he's always been kind of one of our big leaders, and he was one of the speakers, the 3 main speakers. He said that people are attracted to congregations largely through their social justice efforts. And I think, you know, if you look at somebody like Scott, that's how he came here. He saw the same people over and over again at different things, and he said, you know, where do you go to church? I don't know how that conversation started, but he found that out, and he has since decided we're his people. I don't know if I agree that that's, you know, how everybody comes. I don't think it is, but yes.
I have to say that well over 30-some years ago, that was exactly my experience after, which I guess I related when we had the spiritual journey service, that after explorations in all kinds of places, I went for some unknown reason to the Olympia Brown Church in Racine one Sunday morning, and the minute I walked in the door, I knew that was it. From all the people that I saw there, who I knew from the community, engaged in all sorts of social justice things, but hadn't a clue that they were actually Unitarian Universalist. Mm-hmm. And that proved to be it. Yeah. Just put your foot in the door and there they are.
So his point, though, was that you kind of need to have an identity in terms of social justice and know who you are in that regard. And I had said, well, you know, I've always thought my social justice was working here to support this entity, to allow other people to connect in those ways. But I realized, and I'm going to get to a little vignette that will tell you that I can't do that in a vacuum. I have to know what our identity is and what our social justice positions are. And the reason I'm going to talk about an experience I had, which was not through the training. It was in the bookstore, and it just happened at the time I was there. The minister who did all the history teaching was kind of minding the store because the other guy was also a tech guy and he had a setup somewhere. So I said something like, we should put a banner up. Would that be good if we did, you know, that said all lives matter? I know Chance is going to be saying, oh no! Yeah. And he said, well, probably not. And I said, I mean, that so represents what UU is about, that all lives do matter. Do I need to realign my thinking about this? And he said, maybe, probably. And I started to think some more. And then, like, he told us that GA got almost swamped by this discussion last year. There was a big, long, difficult harangue about that very thing. Is it Black Lives Matter? Is it All Lives Matter? And I went through in like 2 minutes, spun through the whole thing in my head, and realized that, you know, this Black Lives Matter thing is is something that they started. It's probably our most oppressed group. And for us to change it to All Lives Matter, even though it so clearly shows a position of who we are, is to take it away from them. It's a non-support statement, you know, and I realized that. And then I realized that, okay, if I'm just working in a vacuum and I'm doing leadership stuff and I'm being all gung-ho and I put up a sign like that, that is a terrible mistake potentially, you know, and it's like, okay, you know, I need to educate myself about what goes on here. But I think part of it is also we need as a group to understand how we come together. You know, we can't really represent a position. I mean, part of it is because the diversity program in town isn't us. We're a big part of it, but it isn't us. And we can't make a statement for them. If we wanted to do something along those, what if we wanted to support Muslim churches that we knew, you know, were being oppressed? How do we go about doing that? How do we know, A, we want to do that, B, that we can speak for the whole congregation or the board or, you know, some group? That's something we just don't know how to do. And so I was going to open the discussion kind of on how can we come to a collective understanding of how we want to act as a community, both internally and externally.
Can I say one thing?
Oh, sure.
You brought up two things, support of the Muslim community and Black Lives Matter. Those are issues we want to discuss separately because we don't have the time to do it here. But we want to talk about the process of how we come to know, you know, who we are.